What's good, everyone? I am Dr. Nii. I am joined by
Dr. Renee.
Christian Alfred. Go ahead and give us some confetti, please. Please. Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of Docs Outside the Box, where we are fusing money, medicine, and pop culture.
As well as...
No, I don't say as well as anymore. I've stepped my game up, Renee. Don't try to trip me up. New host, new laptop, new microphone. You know, I'm not making those mistakes anymore. But listen, everyone, welcome back. Thank you very much for listening. Those who are listening to us through YouTube, those who are watching us through YouTube, thank you and shout out. We are slowly but surely building our subscriber count. So listen,
we got up to about 302.
Yeah, we're doing good with that. So everybody who continues to listen, I'm telling you, the video experience is quite different than the podcast
Alfred does
experience.
A great job.
Y'all missing out. I mean, Christian does a great job on an audio experience, but also at the same time, so many people are used to listening to us on audio. Hey, we also got a video experience, guys, so you might as well check it out. Yeah. And once again, thank you for everyone, the day ones who've been listening to us on the podcast. We appreciate it when you're working out, when you're operating, when you're in clinic, when you're driving, wherever you are and you're listeing to us.
When you're pulling your hamstrings, like you said the last time.
Pulling your hamstrings. Yeah, we appreciate it. If you're getting your hair twisted, braided, you know what I'm saying? And all that stuff. If you're listening to us.
You got 3 people braiding your hair.
We appreciate all of that. So, Dr. Renee, I'm in a hotel. You at home. Kids are asleep. We recording this.
Late.
Yeah. Life is a lot different now than how life was 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we just got married or close to gotten married. You know, we always tell people when we got married, we found out we had like almost $700,000 of student loan debt. Yep. And it was crazy. We didn't know what to do.
We're broke as a joke.
Yeah, we also had a lot of other debt that a lot of people don't know about. So everybody, we not only just had $662,000 of student loan debt, but Renee also was on the lam. She was running from the IRS. The IRS is coming for you like you was Vince. Was it not Vince? What's his name? Something Al Capone, right? Renee didn't want to pay her taxes, right? So imagine that. We trying to get married, and it's time to like tell each other what's going on. And Renee's like, "Oh, I gotta tell you."
I was trying to cash in. I was like, "Yeah, I'm about to marry a trauma surgeon. He gonna pay this debt."
I was still driving a Jetta. I was still driving a 1999 Volkswagen Jetta.
We're gonna trade in that Jetta for that IRS debt. That's right. Clank, clank. Clank, clank.
Like, yo, Nii, I want to tell you something right now, but I got all this IRS debt. Well, how much IRS debt you got? It's probably got like 2,000, 3,000, 18,000.
Yeah, I was doing
student loan debt.
I was doing locums, and I had done locums pretty much for a whole year. But at that time, I did not understand the concept of being an independent contractor. And I wasn't even an LLC technically.
So folks, basically what she's saying is if you don't know what being a locums is, basically she was getting paid and they would pay her a certain amount, but they wouldn't take money out for taxes. They wouldn't take money out for healthcare. They weren't taking money out, nothing. They just gave her a large lump sum. So imagine she got $100 when if she was working, if she was employed, she probably should have got like $50. So sis wasn't taking money out to give to the IRS because they wanted their money. So you was getting all this large sum of money and you wasn't paying the IRS.
Yeah, man.
I had to come swoop in and save you.
Oh, please. Whatever. Clank, clank. I plotted and I schemed.
I remember that. I was like, wait, not only do we have student loan debt together, now I got to help pay for your damn IRS debt. Damn.
Whatever, please. And you brought in your house, so don't even try it.
But at that time when we were dating, it wasn't really debt. It was being paid for. You just straight up brought just like, the IRS on our backs. You know what I'm saying?
Whatever. You brought in a house that had HOA fees that kept going up. And finally, we realized we weren't even making money on that house anymore.
We weren't losing money, but we weren't making money. We were just breaking even every month, which I don't know if that's just as bad, but I mean, for us, it wasn't fun.
Great.
So guys, I started residency. As soon as I started residency, this is 2006, yo, right on that bubble, yo. It was in Atlanta. I had no money down, had nothing saved up, and they were giving loans to everybody. And I got a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath. The house was dope. Townhome, what do you call it? It's like a townhome condo.
Complex.
That's what they call it.
Oh, condo.
Townhome condos and stuff right outside Atlanta, right near, like, it was in Mableton. And yeah, it was $175,000. That was debt. And I had a really bad tenant when I was in Miami. And there was one point where I had to start using credit card debt, or I had to start using my credit cards to make those payments. It was bad. So by the time I also finished, I had $25,000 in credit card debt.
Bing, because that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. Remember, I paid that off before we got married, so
Please,
I didn't bring
whatever.
that in.
Yeah, and then it impinged on our wedding plans because then you got mad at me because I got the trolley.
And then we also had car payments, right? You had your lease.
Yep.
Yeah, you had your lease. You had
lease.
your what was that? That was a Nissan Sentra.
Yeah.
That was
I
a
love
Nissan
that
Sentra.
car. Yeah.
That was at $199 a month or $189 a month.
I think $189 a month, if I'm not mistaken.
That was a good car. That was a really good
I like
car.
the first one was. The second Sentra was that was yucky.
So I think if we totaled out all of our debt, we probably had roughly about $900,000 of student loan debt.
Probably.
Or $900,000 of debt.
But like of
in
debt.
general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
debt
crazy.
in general.
And we had no clue about that.
Tell everybody why we're even talking about this, because I don't even think we introduced why we were talking about all of this. People just think, oh, they spilling the tea today, hunty.
Oh, yeah. Well, we spilling the tea today on purpose because this episode is Money Trap number 4, right? Money Trap number 4, which is one of the reasons why doctors get burnt out, why they spend so much time working, why they spend so much time doing things or pulling themselves away from what they really want to do, which is, work, but they don't want to work all the time and they want to spend time with family. So the Money Trap number 4 is having too much debt. Right. And that's a big deal. We talk about debt a lot in the show because it played a major part in our lives. It played a major part in where we lived. It played a major part in how we practice. It played a major part possibly if we could even start a family. Right. Because debt played a major role in if we were going to do IVF or not.
Yep.
And how we're going to pay for that.
And how we were going to pay for that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was something that I think I think for me, debt in general was something that I was, when we finally did all the mathematics and had our first meeting together, which to this day, I think it was very contentious when we started talking about how we're going to pay it
You're
off.
always talking about that. And I'm like, it actually was not that bad.
I'll leave it to like this.
It was not that bad, Nee. Please, I've been knowing you 20 years. We have had way worse fights than that.
For the friends who know us and are listening, to pray for us. So come on.
Y'all know how Nee and Renee
Dr.
get
Hogg,
down.
You had to pray for us. We made it though. We still trying. So listen, y'all, don't listen to Dr. Renee because listen, you be under exaggerating. We was beefing. All right?
I be under exaggerating, Nee.
You be under exaggerating or whatever the word I want to use. But you know what I'm getting at.
Over exaggerating. Which actually my dad always says that doesn't make any sense because if you're exaggerating, you're already over what you should be saying.
All right, let's stop stalling and let's get into the meat and potatoes
the money
of
trap,
this
number
episode.
4 that keeps
Money
doctors
trap
burnt
number
out.
4. So listen, guys, the reason why we brought this example up is just to let you know that we had a ton of student loan debt. We had a ton of consumer debt. We had a mortgage. We had a whole bunch of different things. There's a lot of debt that we all deal with that we, to the most part, I think we normalize. We end up living with, depending on which financial guru you listen to, they may say you look at it like a pet or you treat it like a plant. And that was us. And we possibly could have been us even at this point, 10 years in, right? Like, well, student loans are just part of your life and you just pay it based off of that coupon book. And you make those payments until you're maybe in your late 50s.
Do they even send the coupon book anymore?
I don't know if they send the coupon book anymore. Anybody who knows, because we ain't got loans anymore. We ain't got to deal with that. Right?
Exactly.
But I'm sure they have a way to send stuff to your house where, listen, they'll mail it to you and they will find you, right? If they don't get you through email, which they prefer to do, they'll find you and they'll send you that thick book that you got to flip, right? Yep. But I think it's really key to also really quickly talk about one thing, though, is even at that point where we had all of this debt, I felt like I didn't really have a spending problem.
No.
Remember we had that discussion? Yeah. And I think people from the outside looking in be like, yo, y'all had a spending problem because I don't understand why you would get a $175,000 house. Renee, I don't know why you would have $18K in debt. You also got a car payment. But I really felt like I didn't have a spending problem. I don't know about you.
No, I felt like I didn't have a spending problem either, right? Like, you know, I wasn't somebody who went out and just spent just to spend, right? I spent on things that I felt like, you know, were for the most part necessities, you know, for me. And that, you know, that doesn't mean that I didn't go out and, you know, go to restaurants and things like that. But I was, you know, I felt like I kept my money close enough to me such that I got what I needed. But the problem was that I was probably overspending on things that I actually needed, if that makes any sense, right? Like, so I wasn't splurging like, oh, I want these jeans, I want these shoes, I want this bag, I want this, whatever. It was things that I needed, but I wasn't very intentional about how much money I was spending on the things that I actually needed. And I think that's what happened, was that I overspent on those things. Yeah.
I just didn't do a good job of saving my money. I'll just be honest with you with that. I just would just spend money, and I didn't buy Jordans. I didn't buy any of those things. I didn't buy none of that stuff. I just didn't know how to save money. I wasn't paying attention to it, and I was just hoping that I got the next payment, you know, 2 weeks later, and literally half of my payment went to my mortgage anyway. So that was a huge issue for me. But so real quick, before we go into our next section, I think something is really interesting. I found this. This is from 2019. It's the top 10 schools that have the highest amount, or the students are graduating with the most amount of student loan debt. Which is crazy.
If this is your school.
All right, let's start number one. This is from U.S. News and Report, so you know they do their research. Number one school, Western University of Health Sciences. I think that's an osteopathic school.
Yes, that's an osteopathic school. Yep.
Tuition in 2019, 2020 was $59,000.
Dang.
The average indebtedness of the graduates of 2019, $295,000.
Wowza.
Second, Nova Southeastern. I think that's an osteopathic school.
Yeah. Go Dio, go.
In state, $54,000.
Dio is the first two letters of dollars.
Yo. Out of state, $61,000. Average indebtedness of 2019 grad, $286,000.
Oh my God.
New York Medical College, that's an MD school.
That's an MD school.
$54,000, $54,580. Average indebtedness, $258,000. University of Illinois. How is University of Illinois that high? University of Illinois, that's a public school, right?
I thought so.
$46,000. Out of state, $93,000.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's probably how it made the list.
Yeah, West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. $21,000 if you're in state, $52,000 if you're out of state. They really want you to come. They really want you to be in state.
They really want you to be in state. Yeah. Yeah.
Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine, $41,000 in state, out of state, $66,000.
Yeah. They de-incentivize coming from out of state.
EVMS, Eastern Virginia Medical School, $32,000 in-house, out of state, $56,000.
Not in-house.
Or in-state. You get what I'm saying. And then Drexel University, Ohio University, Georgetown, rounding up. But Georgetown is at the bottom at $232,000. That is crazy. So you're already starting out behind the eight ball. And then if you're not careful and you start going through residency, or you go through, attending, you're like, I've been delaying this and I want to get that, and I'm accustomed to this. Like Chris Rock, I'm accustomed to that. I want a vacation. I want to get a Tesla. I want to get a S5. I want to get this nice car. That debt, is going to build up and it's going to come after you, man.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think people got to be careful. And next, you find out that your paycheck that you get from, whether it's residency, definitely when you are an attending, you find out like half of your check is paying off your car payment. Half of your check is paying off all of these different things. And you're like, the second half of your check, you're probably just trying to catch up and try to build savings. If you're even thinking about that. I think that's crazy. It's crazy. We were there, guys. So don't think we're making this up. We were there.
Right. We were definitely there. And, it's kind of like what you said, right? You're catching up. Literally, it takes you 2 paychecks to be able to pay for your necessities, right? And, sometimes people are like, well, what's the problem? Like, as long as, the month as long as I could pay for everything, over the month, it's like, yeah, but how much are you saving? How much are you investing? How much are you, putting towards retirement? Because if it
And you're like,
takes you,
huh?
right?
Huh? Investing, huh?
If it takes you 2 paychecks to be able to pay your mortgage, right? Like if it takes 1 paycheck, right? And then 2 weeks later, half of that other paycheck to be able to pay your mortgage alone, then the rest of that half of the second paycheck, you still got utilities to pay. You still got other bills that you need to pay. It's like you literally are going to be living paycheck to paycheck.
So
paycheck to paycheck.
I think in terms of just like accruing things that are just going to increase the amount of debt that you have, I think my advice to people is like, I think the most important thing is I understand that you've delayed wherever you are at. If you're in law school, med school, nursing school, PA school, there's going to be a certain amount of delaying gratification that you're going to get. I get it. The thing is that like adding all of this stuff together, you find out that, wait, you did all of this sacrifice just to get a paycheck so you can pay off all this debt. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to understand a baseline thought process is look, what do I desire versus what do I need? Right. And I think the real flex is trying to keep what you desire as low as possible and really focusing on what you need. I'm not saying like you have to live a very minimalistic life, even though there's a lot to be said about that. And I think that a lot more people are starting to say, look, like minimalism is where it's at.
Right.
But I think most people who look at minimalism look at it as you're denying yourself something,
right?
Which, depending on how you look at it, you may be right, may be wrong. But I do think that lusting after things and, purchasing things and going after all these different things, maybe because you didn't get it in your 20s, is going to cause some problems when you're in your 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, people want that really nice lifestyle, right? I mean, that's the thing. When you're a pre-med and you start thinking about what life is going to be like when you're a physician, right? When you finally cross over that finish line, you have in your head this picture of what it was going to be like, what you were going to be, things you were going to have, things you were going to be able to do. And now to get across the finish line and then have to say, well, nope, erase that picture because you're not there yet. I think that's very hard for people. That's a very harsh reality for people. And I think honestly, at that point, they're just like not even thinking about how that picture is inaccurate in comparison to their income and their debt, right? They don't look at their debt to income ratio. All they can think about is, this is what I want my life to be. I finally have, the authority to make certain decisions for myself.
Got that white coat. It says MD.
Right.
It says DO. It
exactly.
says PA.
And now I can do
yeah.
what I want. And not to mention that there's also, I think, the societal expectation that, oh, you a doctor, like how you driving a Pinto, how you driving a Pinto?
How you driving a Toyota Corolla?
How you driving a Toyota Corolla, right? That's what we drive.
We drive a Toyota Corolla, guys, just so y'all know.
We do. So there's that expectation too, right? I remember I pull up in my, 1991 Nissan Stanza, and yes, I would valet that thing if necessary.
That was not an attending. You drove your Stanza until residency.
Well, when I was a resident,
you didn't even finish residency.
Hold
on a second.
No. I'm gonna call you.
Stop trying to act like 5 years ago you was driving this 91 Stanza.
Stop playing. Hold on. But you gotta understand, people buy these things as residents, right?
Right.
People buy these things as residents.
Buy what as residents?
Buy nice cars as residents, because now they're making an income, whereas they never made an income before. You gotta remember, some people's first job is doctor, right? Like you go to high school, you go to med school, you go to college, then you go to med school. Your first job might actually be residency. Your first job might actually be as a doctor. And so you're making some money for the first time. You have no clue like how much money is really this money, right? Like you don't know what it is. They tell you, oh, you're gonna get, $50,000 a year. You like $50,000.
Shout out to Aldwin. Hey, you guys need to be following Aldwin Sumari. He's a resident now, right?
Yeah, he's a resident.
So Aldwin Sumari just graduated from Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. I think he was at the Atlanta, Georgia. He's on the Atlanta, Georgia campus, and has made a name for himself on social media. Very colorful guy, very great personality. And now he's on social media talking about how as a as a medical student, he was just paying for everything, right? Writing loans, all co-signing all this stuff. And now that he's a resident, he finding out like he put in all these crazy hours and he's still not getting money. I think he did the mathematics on Twitter. The math.
He's like, it's less than minimum wage. Welcome to medicine.
Yo, we got to find that and put that in the show notes,
post.
Man.
Yeah, we got to put that post in the show notes. But yeah, I mean, so you have to understand too, right?
Like, why you do that? Well, you heard my point, then you go, but why people do that?
But
and then you move back to your point.
But rest in peace, Tommy Ford. But people do buy stuff in residency, right? And then it just starts accumulating from there. You bought a whole house in residency, right?
I ain't put no money down.
It doesn't matter, but you had the debt. And that's what we're talking about today, right? Is people have too much debt for the amount of income that they have and for the amount of debt that they already have, right?
So before we be able to tell people get a used car, but the used car, because the semiconductor demand or supply is down, a lot of these car companies can't make these new cars with the infotainment systems, or if you have a Tesla, it's really hard to build this car if the majority of the car is a semiconductor. Or just in general, COVID really happened. A lot of companies that the production line is just not the same as it used to be, so there's a big shortage of new cars out there. So the used car market is going up like crazy. And as a result, a used car is just as expensive, if not more expensive than MSRP. Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing this up, what you said too, is like if you are even looking for a used car now as a resident or even as an attending, I got some stats. Hold on. It says the average car payment as of first quarter of 2022 is averaging $648 a month. Yeah. $648 a month. And then the average car loan term is now 72 months. 72 months, yo. Hey, Alfred, I don't know how to do math. Where is he? Alfred, put the math right here on the screen, please.
You asking Alfred to do the math now?
72 months. How many years is that? Hook it up. I don't know how many years that is.
You don't know how much 72 months? Yeah, that's 6 years.
Oh, yeah?
Hello.
That's 6 years? I'm a doctor now, so I'm good.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Anywho. But yeah, I mean, I think that, the whole keeping up with the Joneses, really does stick with people, and they're trying to do that even in residency. But then once they become attendings and that 5-figure salary turns into a 6-figure salary, I mean, it can be really, detrimental to people's lifestyles. So they think that their lifestyle is about to get better. But actually what's happening is potentially it's getting worse because they realize they have more money, but they don't realize that the debt is still taking up a big chunk of that money.
Nickel and diming them.
And then
like subscription fees.
They're buying even more on credit, right? They're buying even more on credit. So they're swiping their cards, they're getting a new car. They're buying a bigger home, things like that. Right. So,
and you got to be careful because some people try to use the whole credit card thing of, well, I'm travel hacking or I'm credit card hacking. So, right. I'm using my credit card for all of these home expenses or maybe these expenses when I'm on the road and I'm getting these points. But you got to make sure that you're paying that stuff at the end of the month. Right. So that no interest is making, because that's how these credit card companies are able to offer all of these benefits is there's a significant amount of people who don't pay their monthly balance. The interest that they make off of that is how they're able to provide all of these great benefits for everybody. So if you pay that on time, they're not making any money off of you, and they're going to actually hate your guts. But, you just got to be really careful. So, I think that, I think that's one secret that I think a lot of folks don't tell people when they make it to a certain point, which is, yeah, like the more money you make, the more problems you have, and the more bills and debt that
More money,
rack
more
up.
problems.
You got to be careful
More
about
money,
that.
more problems. And, you know, the other thing that we didn't necessarily mention is co-signing, right? So a lot of us may have co-signed loans, but again, right? Society believes, oh, you big shot doctor now, oh, you doctor
Hey,
now,
yo.
you doctor now, right? And so people come to you and they're like, hey, can you co-sign this particular loan for me?
You know
right?
I'm good for it.
Exactly. People will ask you, now that you're a physician and you making all this big time money, right? Come and co-sign for me. And, you know, I have a nephew. I love him dearly. He came to me, remember? He came to me and was like, oh, Tati, can you co-sign this loan for me for this car? I literally laughed out loud. I was like, I don't co-sign. I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, it's really nothing against you, but I don't co-sign.
Why don't you co-sign?
My sister co-signed for me. I appreciated it, but she also went through the pain, right? She also went through the pain of watching me dodge, you know, student loans, right? And so I remembered that and I was like, yeah, I don't want somebody to do that to me. So I said, no, I don't co-sign. What I can do is, if I have the money, I can give it to you. You know, I can give you money, but I am not going to co-sign. So, you know, we ended up giving him a little something to put towards a down payment for his car loan or whatever it was.
Did?
Yeah, we did. We gave him something. You don't remember, but we did. We gave him something.
You gave him something, you mean?
No, we gave him. I would not give him something without telling you. It doesn't make any sense. But no, I don't co-sign, because when you co-sign somebody, essentially what you're doing is you're adding more debt to yourself. You think it's not your debt. It is your debt. Like, that is totally your debt, right? Because they would not be able to get it were it not for your signature on that paper. So technically it is your debt, and it does add to your debt to income ratio. So, you know, you have to think about that, if you are co-signing for people, you need to be really, really careful, because it can affect your credit score. It can affect your ability to, you know, pay your own bills, especially if this person is defaulting on their loans. So you need to be really, really careful.
So I think it's really important that we kind of put a low key flex out there that we learned recently. And I talked with our new CPA about this. He's going to be featured on a future episode, which is, if you get asked to co-sign, or if you get asked constantly by certain people to give money or to support family in some form or fashion, particularly if you have a side hustle or if you have a side business, if you are working locums and you're doing independent contracting, whatever you may be doing, hire that person, right? And then give them money as a salary, or give them money like that, so that it becomes tax deductible.
Right.
That's one way. Particularly if you have someone who is constantly asking you for money. Right. So then you kind of put them on salary, and then it becomes beneficial for you.
Yeah.
And then it becomes beneficial for them.
Yeah. And definitely always have some sort of a contract. You know, always have some sort of a contract, you know, as to if you're loaning somebody some money and you expect for that money to come back, always come back, you know, always do a contract for that, because that could be a very contentious thing when someone says, no, you gave me that money. It's like, no, I loaned you that money. And just remember that, you know, if you loan someone money and you're expecting to be paid back, you should definitely have a contract on that, because that can be a very contentious issue, to not get paid back for something that you originally thought was a loan, and the person just looked at it as a gift.
Here's another.
I watch a lot of Judge Judy, y'all.
Here's another one too. If you know someone, for example, like your nephew who wanted to get a car. Another thing too is you can get a car, put it on Turo, or put it on Lyft. So Turo is like basically Airbnb for your car.
Right.
You use an app and you basically rent out your car to anybody. I use Turo whenever we go to a different town, and I don't want to just rent from Avis or Hertz. I go to Turo, and I can rent like a Tesla, or we could rent like a really nice car. And if you look at all of the fees that you're not paying because you're renting from an airport, if you compare the fees that you're not paying by using Turo, and you get a really nice car, it comes out to a little bit cheaper than renting from Avis or Hertz. So you can put your car on that, and now anytime you use that car for Turo, which is to rent it out, it becomes tax deductible. Right.
In other words, you're using your debt, as a source of income, right? Like that's actually,
but when they pay you, but when the person is supposed to pay, the person is supposed to be paying you. So they're paying you back, or they're paying back, the business that purchased the car, right? So your whatever business purchased the car, and you're letting him or her use it, but they're still paying you. And if they can't pay you, then worst case scenario, you put it on Turo and you make some money from that.
Right. In other words, you're using your debt as a source of income.
You take the car back. Yep.
Right. And that's the thing, right? That's really what debt is supposed to do for you. It's supposed to be some sort of an investment, right? That's why a lot of times we say, oh, well, if you buy a house, it's an investment. Your debt is really supposed to be an investment for you. It's supposed to have some sort of return. But we don't really look at it like that, right? I think most people don't look at debt as something that is supposed to be, an invested venture. I think people look at debt as, well, it's a substitute for cash, and really shouldn't be that. So I think we should talk about, ignoring those student loan debt, and pretty much the effects that it can have, on doctors in particular.
You talking about going on autopilot with your student
going
loans?
on autopilot, ignoring it, ignoring the things that potentially could help people decrease their debt even faster. Those are the things that I think, definitely keep people burnt out, right? You keep thinking about this debt, and you keep I think Dr. Lucy had mentioned, how she basically had a full-blown panic attack just thinking about the debt, right? Like that was episode 285, right? And she just had a whole full-blown panic attack. And I think that she's not alone. I don't know that people have full-blown panic attacks, but I do think that people, sit with the debt and it sees,
Well, I think a lot of people don't know what to do. They're not sure what to do with it. And as a result, they decide, well, I'm just going to follow the plan that the company put out for me. I'll follow the coupon book or follow whatever happens in my email.
Yep. Or I'll dodge it.
A lot of people don't know that there's so many different things that you can do to really kind of decrease, one, the total amount that you're going to pay, two, maybe decrease the interest rate on it, or three, decrease the length, right? There's just so many different things nowadays that you can do. And I think just kind of being stressed out about it and not taking any movement on it, or just making, just automatic payments, which is good. I think there's so much more that you can do, know, and I'm going to put in a link, but there's a really good article from Student Loan Hero. .com. If you go to studentloanhero.com and you go to the links that's in the show notes, there's a student loan repayment guide for doctors. There's also one for other professionals also. And it talks about all of the different things that you can do. One being refinancing your loans, right? So if your loan interest rate is at a certain rate, like you go to a company and they will buy your loan and then offer you a lower interest rate, hopefully, right? There's also just understanding that maybe you need to get into the public service loan forgiveness plan, right? Where, for a certain amount of years and a certain amount of payments that you're going to make, after that, the government's going to relieve or it's going to forgive those payments. Those are something to consider. A lot of people right now who are struggling right now, interest rates are going high. You may not even be in the six-figure range and you're wondering, how am I going to make my student loan payments, right? There's income-based repayment. Right. So there's all of these different things that are out there that we can consider. We talked about it, with Travis Hornsby in 290. That was episode 290.
Episode 299.
$299 that everybody needs to go take a listen to. That there's just multiple ways that you could skin a cat to make sure that your loans are way more efficient, and that for the most part, your student loan debt is way more efficient. You could do the same thing with your with your debt. There's like high, your high interest rate debt. Like you can, a lot of people refinance those also.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean, another thing that you could potentially do is when you are looking for a job, right? When you're looking for a job, one of the things that you can negotiate is student loan repayment. You actually did that, and negotiated some student loan repayment, for your job.
I should have went harder.
Yeah, you should have gone harder.
I had $10,000 every year would go towards my student loans. But that was $10,000 like before tax.
Right.
So,
but I mean, I think that's really important. We're partnering with St. John Associates, and they're a staffing company. They do mostly permanent. Actually, they don't do any locums. They do permanent staffing, right? And so this is one of the things that, if you were to go with a staffing agency, that, you're going to want to ask, hey, or you're going to want to present, as I said before, right, in the previous episode, you're going to want to present that as a potential condition of you working at that particular job. In St. John.
Hey, let's just be real. Let's be real. Like if you are working with St. John, or if you're working with any staffing company, like you need to be telling people, listen, I got student loans. What can you do to help me with that from a company standpoint? That's what I would say. Absolutely not. It's like how we have Cedric, Dr. Cedric, who runs policy prescriptions. Remember, he was like the whole notion of going to medical school or going to college nowadays, depending on where you come from, like you really shouldn't have to pay that much, right? Like you may not necessarily need to go to like the big time schools, but there are plenty of schools that want you there. And it's the same thing with these hospitals. Like it's like, for real. Like if you got a lot of student loan debt, you need to be negotiating that in your contract ASA. I would do that more than the salary. I don't care what they say.
Absolutely. And when you have a company, that's been doing this for 30 years, they're not, the new kids on the block, right? St. John Associates has been doing this for well over 30 years. I mean, their experience, right? Like they can definitely help walk you through what you need to be presenting to, whatever new hospital that you're going to be going to. Think about the income also, right? Because we talked about, you're going to be getting a 6-figure income, but every 6-figure income is not, is not made equal, right? So what does that mean for you? So if they're touting, oh, well, you're going to get 350K, working as whatever specialty you're in, because they do all specialties. Their forte is ortho, but they do work with all specialties.
Those doctors that know how to replace potassium. Hey.
Here we go again. So if you do know how to replace potassium, okay, which means you would not be an ortho doc, you could still actually work with St. John Associates because they could place you too, since they do all specialties. Okay, is that better for you, Nii?
Thank you.
But anyway,
just at least know how to use their electrolyte replacement guide. That's all I gotta say.
It's fine, Nii. It's okay. It's okay. They're not going to learn. Just get over it. They're not going to
No more
learn.
than just answer.
Orthos are not going to learn, babe. I'm sorry. Just get over it. But, think about the salary that you're making. We kind of talked about this in the previous, the previous money trap with the income. You have to negotiate, right? Part of negotiating your income is actually thinking about how much debt you have. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's one thing that I think we can do a better job of, is letting people know that money can look, how you get paid looks different than just a salary, right?
Right.
Like it's not just a straight salary of them giving you money, right? Like it could be a benefit, right? Like it could be paid time off. It could be CME. Some hospitals give you like like $20,000 in CME. I'm using that as exaggeration, but like your salary may be like median with everybody else, or maybe a little bit lower depending on where you're at. But if you have really great benefits, then like it may outweigh having a nice salary. So if there's a way that you could say, hey, you know what? I don't want a sign-on bonus, right? I don't want a sign-on bonus. Right. I just want you to take care of my student loans, right? Because the reason I don't like sign-on bonuses is because more often than not, sign-on bonuses are sign-on loans, right?
Right.
Like they are
That's usually
golden
what it is.
handcuffs.
Yeah.
They're golden handcuffs, and you got to be there for 3 or 5 years. So I'm like,
Right.
look, just give me, 10K or 15K or 20K or even more than that every year towards my student loan for every year that I'm here. That's
Yep.
it, you know?
Yep.
So I
Well,
agree with you there.
Yeah. And then obviously look to see, how that staffing company is getting paid, right? Because that's another thing, right? So St. John Associates, they only get paid if there's a match. There's no match, you don't get paid. They don't get paid, right? So if you don't get paid, they don't get paid, which is really good. So, check them out. They're at stjohnjobs.com/docs. Okay.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
that
show notes, guys. Don't worry about that.
But check them
So-
out. They do a great job. They don't put your CV all over the place. We kind of beat that horse to death in a couple of episodes before this one. But yeah, I think, people don't realize the amount of damage that not paying debt can do, right? Whether it's student loan debt.
So I was actually going to ask you about that. Let's pivot real quick because
Yeah.
I get what you're saying there. And I think we kind of talked about that. Let's pivot to let's talk about this in a different way so that we can kind of just, do you think if you were to do this again, you're 10 years out now.
Right.
We finished in 2017. We're now like almost 5 years paying off all of our student loan debt, right? Probably like 4 years, 3 years now from paying everything off.
Right.
So if you could do it again, would you pay off your debt off early, or would you take a more modest approach to paying off your debt?
If
Knowing what you
I
still
can
knew
do
back
it-
then. Knowing what you still knew back then.
Knowing what but I didn't know anything, and that was the problem, right?
I know what you
Like,
know now. Know what you know now. Then I'll make it easy. Know what you know
that
now.
makes more sense, right? Knowing what I know now, knowing
You'll
what
be
I
here
know
making
now,
it-
I
I'm
probably
making it easy for you.
whatever. Anyway, but I mean, you're asking me if I knew then. I'm like, if I knew what I knew then I would do the same thing. Like,
Irregardless.
Anyway, so-
answer the question.
so knowing what I know now, I probably still would have paid it off quickly.
Why?
Right? Because when
Why?
I figured out what the impact was for me, right? I think what happens is when people like me and like you realize what the impact is, then we want that monkey off our backs, right? So the impact of not paying your debt is having this anxiety, right? This anxiety of having this debt that you owe somebody and you just don't want to have it. Not everybody has that feeling, right? Some people are just fine with having debt. You and I are just not those people. I don't like knowing that I owe people. The other thing is, getting deeper in debt and knowing that, okay, if I either defer or forbear, or even if I'm paying it off, right? Even if I am paying it off, I'm still paying more than if I would have just paid it off all at once.
Well, the whole thought process
Right?
to the opposite is, well, knowing what you know now, for example, would you have been as aggressive on the federal part? Like, I definitely understand the private part.
I
right?
think I
Because
would have been.
The private part for everybody who is listening, I don't know why we always say for everyone. Of course, people are listening. For folks that are listening, our private loans
said it again,
were,
but that's okay.
Alfred, put it on there, or the opposite way. Our
the folks that are listening?
Our private loans were like anywhere between like 9 to like 13%.
Yeah.
And it came out to a total of $180,000.
Yeah.
And then we had federal loans altogether that was obviously like $530,000. That was like 2.2% to like 2.3%.
You're pointing in the same direction.
Right. So that's where I want him to put the
That's
the
where you want
numbers.
him to put it.
Yeah, put the numbers there. Hook it up, Alfred. Can I fit? Did I give you
But
enough
anyway.
space? Right.
Do you need to move over?
So the question is I get that you would take the private loans off first because they were at a very high interest rate. They were higher than what most people say. Like they say, like the big part in the road is like 5 to 6%. If you have interest rate that is more than 5 to 6%, then you should pay it off. If you have interest that's less than that, then maybe you should invest, right? Or certainly you shouldn't pay it off. You should invest. So the question is, would you still
I
pay
think
off
I
that
still would
that
have, because
federal?
that
Okay.
anxiety for me of owing somebody was just that much, you know? And then the other thing is, like your credit score, right? Your credit score continues to suffer, right? You can't build up your credit score the way that you would necessarily want to, at least not as fast as you would want to, because your debt to income ratio is just that much. It's just that much. And for me, like, I'm not a person who cares so much about my credit score. But for those people who do, I think that that's something, to think about, right? Like, how quickly can you, recoup that credit score?
I think for me, the thing that I thought about the most was I didn't feel free. Like I didn't feel free to like
Yeah.
move from job to job to job to job because I felt like, well, like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the time to lose a job because or leave and go to another job. And who really wants to do that? But like I just kind of felt like I was like, wait, like the
Right.
reason I became a doctor is because I wanted to kind of just do my own thing and like be my own boss. And you combine that with like medicine is really not like that at all, right? Like it's
Right. It's really not.
it's
Yeah.
mainly you're employed or you work in this type of employed model, and then you throw on top of that, it's like, well, the number one thing is if I lose my job, how am I going to pay my loans? As
Right.
opposed
But
to
that's
thinking
part of
about
the anxiety, right?
well,
Of
but
owing somebody.
right, but I'm just saying my story. That's what I was thinking of, and I think for me, it was really more like, yeah, I don't know if I want to stay at this place for 3 years, or excuse me, I don't want to know if I want to stay at this place more than 3 years. I don't know if I want to live in this part of the world or this part of the country for this. Like, what if I want to do something different?
Right.
And I think that when I was, when we found out about PSLF, obviously we didn't qualify for it, right? Because it was after when we graduated.
Right.
I would talk to some people. I'm like, yo, you want to be at this place for 10 years?
Yeah.
Right? I get it,
Yeah.
and it's smart, but I'm like, damn, I don't know if I want to be in one place. But you don't have to be in one place for
Yeah,
10
you
years. But a
don't
lot of
actually
people,
have to be in one place for 10 years, but you got to guarantee that you're going to be at a nonprofit.
which most
Right.
hospitals are nonprofit, though. So.
Most hospitals are, but I mean, what if you decide that you want to join a practice, right? Like, if you
Bet
decide
on
that
the
you
final
want to join a
529.
practice, huh?
Yeah, 501c practice or something. No, I'm teasing.
Well,
I'm
I
teasing.
mean, I don't know how many, nonprofit practices, private practices there are out there, but, you would have to forego maybe something that you feel is an opportunity just to do that. But for some people, that's fine, right? For some people, that's really fine. The other thing was,
well, let me just finish. I just think that I think a lot of professionals low key don't value how much debt, whatever it may be, makes you make certain decisions that
Oh, yeah.
are kind of subliminal, i.e., what specialty you're going to choose,
Oh, yeah.
i.e., what part of the country you're going to live, i.e., what kind of BS you're going to put up with at
Right.
work,
Right. Right.
And it low key makes those decisions for you. You have no clue that you're making
Right.
those decisions because of how much debt you got.
Exactly. And then not to mention the fact that a lot of professionals don't even appropriately manage their money. They're not budgeting, right? So you end up with late payments. You end up with, getting deeper into debt because of those late payments. Again, your credit score suffers. Like, you have all of this big snowball effect of things that is happening. And then that, that condition that you're living in, then makes it harder for you to even say no, like, I don't want to work here anymore, or no, I don't want to do this extra thing that the hospital's asking me to do. And I don't want to put my job in jeopardy though. So I guess I'm just going to have to do it, And so for me, I think knowing what I know now, yeah, I think I would still have paid it off very quickly, because I just don't like the anxiety that comes with owing somebody, because that anxiety of owing someone comes with all these other little branches of consequences, like you just mentioned. And I don't want to have to deal with that.
If I could do it again, I think I would do it the same way, but I wouldn't do it with as much of a scarcity mindset as I did. Right. Because I think
What's that mean?
That means that basically this money's not like it's going to be hard to get this money. Right. And
Okay.
like it's very like you become very not selfish with the money, but you feel like getting that money is hard to get. So as a result, you become very neurotic about the money. Right.
Okay.
And I think after a while, I was getting very neurotic. Okay, where's this next set of money going to come? We have to continue making these payments towards the student loans. So as a result, like you just become very more type A. And I was becoming very type A about making sure that, I did extra work. Like we talk about, doing locums. And, during this time, those 3 years, what was I doing? I was an employed doc. And then the other 2 weeks, I would take locums jobs and I would work that. And that's what we would use to pay your IVF, right? Or pay for our IVF treatments.
Right.
And like nothing was going to happen unless we worked those shifts. And it was just very rigid. And I just say from a standpoint of when you finish that, it's hard to turn that off, right? It's really hard to turn that off. And sometimes that scarcity mindset, well, I mean,
for you,
well, but who am I speaking for? Is your voice speaking or my voice speaking? Right? Like I'm speaking for myself.
I'm just saying, for you, it was
right. So I think that's one of my things that I look back on. Like, it's good to pay off that debt, but I think I could have done it a little bit differently with less heartache and stuff. Maybe not 3, maybe 4 years, possibly. Who knows? I don't know. But either way, I definitely think that, we kind of beat this horse down that we were talking about how like the big trap is just kind of making sure that, a significant portion of what you bring in is not going towards, consumer debt,
right,
car payments, house, like trying to afford everything and keep up with the Joneses. You got to start keeping that money for yourself and just really understanding. I think the big thing for me is just really understanding what I desire, what I want versus what I need. That was a game changer for me. And I think, when people start to really understand, okay, hold on a second. If I can't pay cash for it, then, or if I can't pay cash for it, I can't afford it. Or if I can't pay cash, if I'm going to use my credit card to do it and I have a means of paying this back by the end of the week, or to make sure that I'm not going over and getting interest charges on it, then I can't afford it, right? Because look, we got to be realistic. Some people do that, right? They buy it with their credit card and then they pay it off before the end of the month. Then they pay it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to get the perks of the credit card. And that's fine. If you're organized enough to do that, then great. If you like me, you probably don't want to do that. Because you will be paying interest, And then the other thing that we didn't talk about, speaking of like missing payments and things like that, don't forget, like if you miss enough payments and go into default, right? Whether it's federal or depending, or if you have a private loan, it may, the terms of default may differ. But if you go into default, they will come after your money. The IRS has a way of getting paid. Like you will get garnished, at the extreme, right? You will get garnished. And then now you really won't have any control whatsoever over how much money is
you paying child support to Sally Mae.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
They garnishing your wages. One thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is...
And you still can't see your kids.
I think one thing that a lot of people don't think about is they always talk about, well, if I keep my student loans, it's a tax, break. Well, that's actually a misconception. All these things that I'm taking, guys, I'm getting these from different, articles that I found. I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, it says the tax deduction for your student loans is limited to $25,000 of student loan interest you pay. It also begins to phase out when your income reaches $70,000, right? So you're getting close to that if you're a resident, in your chief year, or maybe if you're in your like really like advanced level of fellowship, and is eliminated at an adjusted gross income and AGI of $85,000. Or $140,000 and $170,000 respectively if you file a joint return. So, just want people to know that, listen, that whole notion of, well, I'm going to keep the student loans as a tax break, that's not really working out the way
that might not necessarily apply, right? We can't say that it absolutely won't, but it might not necessarily apply, and this is where I think if you don't have enough time to look up all the things that you could potentially do in order to decrease your debt burden, whether that's student loan debt or any other debt, that's where it might be worth it for you to talk to, a professional, right? Someone who can help you. There's
professionals out there.
Exactly. Someone who can help you to make a plan for this debt, or figure out how you can construct this debt such that it's not as much of a burden as it currently might be to you. And I think that that's really important. I think as doctors, residents, and full attendings, like, I don't necessarily think that we have the time to sit down and just, comb through everything and figure out, how we're going to decrease our debt burden. So, the money that you might pay a professional to do it, it might be a little bit annoying, but in the long run, it might actually save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of pain.
Absolutely.
So,
And they know about things that you may not know about. So
right.
We had Travis Hornsby on. He was episode 299. He's one of those professionals out there. Make sure you mention Docs Outside the Box. You get a really nice bonus.
Yeah.
So, we making things happen here with, teaming up and partnering up with folks as well as companies that we think are going to benefit you. As a professional, as a student, as a resident. So make sure you guys check out these and support these people who are in the show notes as well as on our affiliates and so forth. So listen, Renee, let's wrap this up. Let's
wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up, yo, because we gotta go. We gotta go. So what's the parting words you want to say for folks on this episode?
I think the parting words for me is don't ignore your student loan debt. Don't ignore any debt that you have. Try to be very intentional about either whatever debt you currently have or any debt that presents itself that you could potentially get into, right? And so don't just think about I want it, because debt is not a substitute for cash, right? Credit is not cash. Credit comes with interest. And, if you start to treat credit like cash, other than just, paying off your credit card, within the 30-day whatever window, if you start to treat credit like cash, then you're going to be stuck for a very long time. So just be mindful.
I love it. It's great. Why don't we leave it at that? I think I'll keep mine really short and simple and just be like, hey guys, you want to make sure that all of the investment, all of the sacrifice that you put in, years ago, maybe even decades ago, is really going to, show its fruits, now. You don't want to mortgage that literally because you have so much debt. You have all of these different things that you're paying for and you're not able to really invest it in yourself, which is health and wealth. And I think that's where it's supposed to be at, your physical health as well as, your mental health. That's the most important thing. So listen, guys, we are going to end this episode. Remember, if you want to get in contact with us, if you want to let us know what you think about the show, if you go to the show notes, you will see that there is a link for a survey, right, with INCROWD. Make sure you check that out. It's also an opportunity for you to make some money with your medical expertise. So check out INCROWD. We have a great partnership with them. And then if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's Dr. Nii Darko. That's where you can find out some of our clips, some of the things on our episode previews on upcoming shows that are coming up. If you want to find out and see what's on our website, check us out at drniidarko.com. Or if you want to email us at team@drniidarko.com. Let us know what's up. Let us know what's good. And we'll be sure to get in contact with you. Dr. Renee, why don't you tell them?
I got one more thing. I got one more thing to say. We have a casting call for residents and fellows, preferably those who are maybe 1 year out from graduating or in their year of graduation. So look for that at Dr. Nii Darko, or actually look for that at Dr. Nii Darko on Instagram. And also, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you can do that on the website. And that will also get you to the casting call. I'll send out an email about that.
Proud.
But
I'm so proud. Look at that, everyone. You see how we growing here at Docs Outside the Box? Remember, it was just me struggling, trying to make things trying to make things happen. Now we got Dr. Renee, and we got Carla, we got Alfred, we got Christian, we got all these people up in here. I'm not giving their last names because I don't want nobody trying to steal them from us, right? We got all these people here, man, trying to make this work.
Say Christian Perry at the end of this, at the end of every episode. I think they already know who Christian is. So.
But listen, guys, we got to get going. We got to pay the bills. Guys, we will catch you all on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box. Remember, this is a fusion of money, medicine, and pop culture. We appreciate y'all. Catch you on the next one. Peace.